In the close to 50 years that Star Wars has been around, Christ, few Jedi introduced in that time have stood in comparison to the original Luke Skywalker. And this makes sense. Being the first childhood superhero for a whole generation of kids, Luke has pulled off some amazing feats while mostly staying human enough and struggling enough to remain relatable. But there is a hierarchy to badassitude, of course, so not all of Luke's accomplishments are equal to one another. Some are just more awesome than others. Luke Skywalker has been in way more material than just the movies, and while the various writers who have taken a crack at him over the years may struggle with his character, they've given him no shortage of powerful feats and great accomplishments. So, greetings, exalted ones. I'm Ewan, this is What Culture, and here are the 10 most powerful things Luke Skywalker ever did. Number 10. Beat an assassin droid in a fistfight. Shadows of the Empire. Droids in the Star Wars universe are built for the single task they are assigned, which is why you'll never see C-3PO pick up a blaster rifle and open up on the First Order, as awesome as that would be. So, with that said, it shouldn't be possible to win a one-on-one confrontation with an assassin droid in any capacity, seeing as how they're, literally built for that sort of thing. In the official novel tie-in for the video game Shadows of the Empire, we meet Guri, a human replica/assassin droid who works for the main antagonist, Prince Xizor of the Black Suns. She acted as his muscle and main enforcer for years until she met Luke Skywalker on Coruscant. Xizor had kidnapped Leia and Luke had come to save her, which of course meant going through Guri. To make matters worse, Luke doesn't even have his lightsaber. He had to fight an elite assassin droid one-on-one and in hand-to-hand combat. But since this is classic EU Luke, who screwed up about as often as Sean Bean lived all the way to the end credits / says bastard in sharp, he takes Guri down in short order. Number 9. Beat a squad of stormtroopers without the Force, the THRAWN trilogy. Long before the sequel trilogy, back when the original 3 were still young enough that you could have them start in a new trilogy without having to worry about one of them dying in the process in between production and sending the whole thing into chaos, if you asked most Star Wars fans what the next trilogy should be based around, they would probably all reply with the THRAWN trilogy, and for good reason. They're the only EU novels that are genuinely really good, at least from the old canon. Please don't kill me. This is for many reasons, but the one I'm focusing on today is how they challenged Luke in interesting ways. In the books, you learn about creatures known as the Islamari. I like salami. Well, anyway, what they lacked in a pronounceable name, they more than made up for in the ability to raise a field around themselves that disables the ability to use the Force for anyone inside it. So it would sure suck for poor Luke if he accidentally walked into a building with hundreds of these things all over the place, all coming together to make a gigantic one of these fields, wouldn't it? And just when Luke's day couldn't get worse, stormtroopers show up and, for the first time in years, Luke had to use his wit, skills, and training to circumnavigate his enemies without the Force to fall back on. Number 8. Defeated the Yuuzhan Vong, Star Wars New Jedi Order. With most Star Wars stories, the problem comes from strictly within the galaxy itself, and since galaxies tend to be pretty big places, writers have no issue working from that point. However, in the New Jedi Order series, we were introduced to a new villain from outside the galaxy, the Yuuzhan Vong, a pain-worshipping race of conquerors who were also completely immune to Force powers and unable to be sent through the Force itself. Yep, needless to say, our heroes were kinda screwed. It got so bad that the Yuuzhan Vong even managed to chase Luke and pals off of Coruscant, taking it for themselves, and unfortunately, like the Old Republic before it, when you take Coruscant, you may as well just own the entire galaxy. But of course, Luke was not one to be defeated by something as simple as an enemy who can counter literally every trick up his sleeve. So, with the help of his friends, some crazy scheming, and a lot of luck, Luke managed to retake Coruscant by dueling the supreme overlord of the Yuuzhan Vong and chopping his head off while dual-wielding lightsabers. The old expanded universe was way too hyper-focused on making Luke effortlessly cool, but when they pulled it off, they did so with aplomb. Number 7. Escaped the Death Star twice, A New Hope and Return the Jedi. Normally, just managing to escape the Empire's top-secret, heavily equipped elite military space station once wouldn't constitute a spot on a list of powerful feats. But when you do it twice, and the second time you're barely even noticed despite lugging the corpse of your dead cyborg father behind you, you're clearly not something to be messed with. The first time Luke ended up on the Death Star was kind of an accident. Older on, their original destination had already been blown to pieces, and the Death Star drew in the Falcon when they got too close. Luke and pals just barely managed to escape with Princess Leia, and even then, they lost Obi-Wan along the way. The second time he escaped the Death Star was after he had just wasted both Vader and the Emperor. And even if you put aside the fact that without their leader they're likely not getting paid, so why bother, the Death Star was minutes away from exploding again, so the staff on board had way bigger fish to fry than dealing with the space hippie dragging around cyborg James Earl Jones. Luke managed to get in and out of the most secure space station in the entire Galactic Empire twice. If that isn't a powerful feat, what is? Number 6. Outflew Darth Vader, A New Hope. I guess the downside to being rebuilt with a badass cyborg body is that it makes delicate actions like flying a spaceship a touch more difficult because your boss thought it would be funny to dress you up in big, bulky space samurai-esque armor that makes it harder to move like you used to. At least that's the explanation I used to justify why the best starfighter pilot of his time couldn't catch up to a farm boy hick who had never been in a dogfight his entire life. One has to imagine Luke running through the climax of A New Hope in his head after learning that Darth Vader was his father, the Republic's best fighter pilot, and wondering how the hell he survived that. Sure, Han made the save at the last moment, but Luke had to play dodge and play keep away with Vader for a while before that, and the film makes it utterly clear how close he came to biting it in that scene. Number 5. Defeated Darth Vader, Return of the Jedi. It's one thing to outfly Darth Vader when you have the Kessel Run guy on your side. It's quite another to fight him one-on-one while said Kessel Run guy is a frolicking about with Muppets in the woods. Especially when you consider how it went for Luke the last time he squared up with Vader with no backup. But of course, Vader laid out the difference between Luke in Empire and Luke in Return perfectly in that previous confrontation. Luke wasn't a Jedi yet when they first fought. That has definitely changed. The fight is one of the absolute best in film history, a duel of two matched warriors as well as a battle for Luke's soul. Sure, Vader is a bad guy who needs to go down, but on the other hand, that's exactly what the Emperor wants him to do. Can he defeat Vader in a way that preserves his morals in the process? Fortunately, the answer is a solid yes. Sure, Luke was still no match for the Emperor, but when it came to the fight that mattered most to his narrative, Luke managed to come out on top. Number 4. Harnessed a black hole, Star Wars New Jedi Order. You would think being able to generate your own black holes would make you supreme lord of all on principle alone. After all, why would you mess with someone who could, on a whim, unleash a black hole? That's definitely what the Chazrak thought when they discovered the technology to create black holes, and immediately set about conquering planets because what else would you do with that kind of tech? One slight hitch, they didn't count on dealing with Luke Skywalker. When the Chazrak whipped out a black hole to deal with the Last Jedi Master once and for all, Luke, harnessing the Force, managed to take control of the black hole and throw it back at the Chazrak. A bit kind of, broken, but whatever, still really cool. Number 3. Defeated the Emperor himself, Dark Empire. Like I've been saying throughout this list, if the old EU had just one cardinal sin, it would be hyper-focusing on making Luke the most unstoppable badass in the entire universe. The main problem with this was that there was one glaring loose end with that thread. He never even put a scratch on the Emperor. Obviously, this must be rectified, hence Star Wars Dark Empire. Obviously, since this is a universe where clones are very much a thing, getting rid of a bad guy for good in Star Wars is kind of hard, so it should come as no surprise that the Emperor comes back, and in a younger, sexier body to boot. Hey, you thought Palpatine was a top shagger in Rise of Skywalker? Just think of all the grandchildren he fostered looking this good. Oh god, Ray Palpatine. What a load of pish. Well, anyway, we'll spare you the truly staggeringly stupid plotline of Luke turning to the dark side, except not really, don't ask, it's really dumb, because the point of all of this is that Luke finally faces off against the Emperor and proceeds to kick his ass 6 ways from Sunday. And remember, this wasn't the frail, easily thrown over a railing Palpatine who was all like, "Help me, Anakin, help!" This was a clone body built to be in its absolute physical prime, making the fact that Luke was still able to bring him down even more impressive. Number 2. Blew up the Death Star, A New Hope. Nothing is more effective at telling your enemies, "I'm gonna be a real pain in your ass," quite like taking their favorite new toy and blowing it to smithereens. What's so funny about this is that in 1977, this was as big as Star Wars got. No complicated lightsaber fights, no gigantic ultra-detailed plans or space battles, just a kid in a trench shooting a bomb down a hole. Mind you, this still results in a moon-sized space station being reduced to cosmic slag, so it's still pretty big, but for a kid back then, this must have seemed impossible to top. It wouldn't be the last time they had to blow a version of this damn space station up, but nothing will ever beat the first film. And number 1. Force Projection, The Last Jedi. While everything else on this list is impressive, all of it pales in comparison to what Luke pulled off in The Last Jedi. Yes, I like this film. No one cares that you hate it. Please find something better to do with your time. Please, just anything. Anyway, in this film, it isn't just the Force power itself that puts it at the top, though make no mistake, projecting a perfect seamless hologram of himself halfway across the galaxy that even fellow Force user Kylo Ren was convinced was real is quite the accomplishment, but what he pulled off as a result of it. The Resistance was dead, no two ways of thinking about it. No backup was coming, the galaxy had resigned themselves to living under the thumb of the First Order, and the most the Resistance could hope for was going down kicking and screaming. And then Luke showed up and humiliated Kylo Ren at his peak of power on the galactic stage, ensuring that, even though he technically won this day, he would not walk away with it remotely satisfied, thus solidifying his legend across the stars as the greatest of the Jedi to ever live, and with it the most powerful action performed by Luke Skywalker, in the second best Star Wars film I couldn't resist. Go read Dark Empire again if you miffed. And yeah, that was our list of the 10 most powerful things Luke Skywalker ever did. Please let me know your favourite Luke moments down in the comments below, and please don't forget to like, share and subscribe, and also to head back on over to whatculture.com for more news, lists and articles like this every day. I've been Ewan, you will follow me on Twitter at EwanRuinsThings, and I'll see you next time. Bye!